So Harvest is in the midst of trying to close on a deal acquiring Verano. It's been an interesting period where the Department of Justice has really been examining these deals in depth, probably to the surprise of the industry. So you're nearing the end of that process with the Department of Justice. Tell me where you're at now and what the final steps are to get that deal closed.
So we're at the phase now where they have certified that we have substantially complied with all of their requests. So what that means is they have a 30-day window in which to, make any suggestions or issue additional requests. What we've seen in other transactions is once you hit the point where we've hit that 30 days elapses and you're free to close the transaction. But in closing that transaction, what that means in this case, because Verano does have an extensive license profile across many states, that we need approvals in each of those states and in some instances at the local levels, municipal levels, to authorize the transfer of business licenses and cannabis licenses and everything else that goes into running a company like Verano.
And on top of all of those additional approvals, the Department of Justice process has taken, I think, longer than most companies expected that have gotten caught up in that. So how have you found that process? I mean, did it catch you off guard? Has it been a frustrating experience?
It is, we're not, yes. Yes and yes. It did catch us off guard because typically in any other industry, transactions that don't have any real overlap, they don't have any antitrust implications or there's nothing to be concerned about, no competitive concerns. So for us, it was quite surprising that they were going to hold all of these transactions. It just so happens that Harvest was very aggressive at the time that this review started, and so we had 3 transactions, more than any other company, caught up in this process. So those 3 transactions were delayed significantly, and we spent a lot of time with lawyers, which is also costly during that process, which we didn't anticipate.
And over that time period, of course, share prices across the industry have been hit pretty hard. So does that change the calculus on any of these transactions for you?
It does. Depending on the structure of the deal, it may. But for our transaction with Verano, there's a fixed number of shares that change hands, so it doesn't change the calculus at all.
Okay. A few analysts had said that once these deals started to receive approval, and we have seen a few of them now that have received approval from the Department of Justice, that would be a major catalyst for U.S. companies' share prices, and yet that hasn't really happened. In fact, those companies that have announced approval have actually seen their share prices decline over the following few days. So why do you think that is?
I think markets are really efficient when they are actually allowed to do what markets do. But this is a market that there is a dislocation between the fundamentals of these companies and how the stocks are performing today, which provides a great investment opportunity for individuals. But we are in a situation where not everybody can invest in U.S. cannabis companies. And that means that the market's not going to perform the way it normally would. It also means that there are higher returns that people can get if they are able to invest at times where not everybody can.
When do you think that will change? Will it take something like the Safe Banking Act, for example, or will it actually be a question of full federal legality before large institutional investors truly feel comfortable participating?
So it will not be full federal legality, but there will need to be a legislative catalyst of some kind, and then you need to have some legislative catalyst plus courage, right? So you're going to have, generally speaking, organizations have this group of people in the organization that are really conservative that try to not let them do anything, and we call them lawyers. I can say that because I am one of them. But it'll take some organizations with some creative lawyers who give the green light to these companies to invest in what is a great opportunity and in the highest growing, fastest growing industry in the country. If that happens with a legislative catalyst, then you're going to see a big change.
Interesting. So talking about Harvest's financials specifically, you've said previously that you were heading for 350 to 400 million in pro forma revenue this year. Are you still on track to hit that target?
So we're in a quiet period right now, so I can't really speak to revenues, but if you look at our run rate previously, it is in line with what analysts were hoping to see over the first 2 quarters, and we're set to announce our third quarter in about a week or 2.
Okay. It's been a tough time for share prices. It's also been a tough time, I think, for companies that are looking to raise capital in the industry. How well positioned would you say Harvest is for a prolonged downturn? If this continues for 6 or 9 more months, Do you have enough capital, or do you have plans to raise money if you need to?
So we are perpetually in capital raising mode. And we don't it's not a secret to anyone. The way that we have structured our available capital is we have capital available as a backstop. We have the ability to add additional capital at cheaper cost in front of existing opportunities or existing facilities. And so we are perpetually looking at that situation. It's not something that we anticipate is going to catch us off guard. And what we're actually seeing now is, for some of the bigger U.S. companies, some better opportunities that are starting to surface.
What sort of opportunities? Debt, equity, real estate? Is there anything specific that you personally would be looking at?
So for us, we have unlevered real estate, a significant unlevered real estate portfolio, which we can use to get money on our balance sheet. We also have very little debt, so that is yet another option. At these prices, equity is a little less attractive for us at the moment, but it is also an option.
Okay. Just want to close out by asking you about the Florida market, because that's an important one for you. It's been growing very rapidly. A lot of new dispensaries have been opening. And I understand producers are still adjusting to the introduction of dried flower, so it's a rapidly changing market too. So what is the competitive environment like for you there, and what are your plans for Florida?
So our plans in Florida are that we need to invest in our cultivation capacity, because what we see, we have 6 open stores in the state currently, and what we see is when those stores have a full supply of flower, they do really well, and then they run out of flower, and then they don't do as well. So for us, it is really as simple as getting some additional cultivation capacity online, which we have a phase that we're about to see productivity from. And then we have plans for future additional capacity, which will allow us to then continue to ramp up our store count within that state.